Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. This episode I will be reviewing the matchup yesterday between the Oakland Raiders and the Tennessee Titans, which of the games I've seen so far from week one was certainly one of the cleanest games. There were some ugly ones yesterday. The Raiders managed to prevail in the matchup, and it was a close game. They managed to just sort of pull away at the end, held a lead for the whole game after a strange decision on the kickoff to go for an onside kick to start the season from the Titans. That ended up costing them in the end. Just as a quick sort of summary as to what I think happened in this one, I wish I'd stuck by my original pick from the round table as to the Raiders winning, because they won for the reasons I suggested there. I ended up managing to talk myself out of it when I did my preview episode, just thinking that the Titans would be able to run the ball. That ended up not being the case. Essentially, this game came down to the Raiders' offense being able to execute more effectively. They ran the ball better than the Titans did. They passed the ball more effectively than the Titans did. Both teams played okay defensively. Wasn't the shootout I was expecting, but the difference was, I think, the experience on the offensive side of the ball for the Raiders really shone through. The Titans really did get bogged down. So on several occasions, Carr looked far more fluid and smooth in his dropbacks, in his reads, in his passing than Mariota did, and I think that ended up being a significant difference, as well as Marshawn Lynch certainly did add something to the Raiders team. So we'll start with the Titans offense and the Raiders defense. So the Titans went into this game with a similar approach to what they normally would, except the criticism I would have is I think they did give up on the run a little bit too easily. They were never behind big in this game until right near the end. It was a one-score game, and whilst they weren't having much success running the ball at all, I think DeMarco Murray had one nice run to the outside over the course of the game. Derrick Henry had a couple of reasonable sort of 5-6 yard carries, but other than that, the Raiders very much held this run game in check. Khalil Mack didn't do a huge amount against the pass, got a couple of pressures, but he was fantastic. The rookie Eddie Van Dos had a really good game in the middle of the field, and they really did control the line of scrimmage. And the Titans, they just weren't able to get anything going up the middle. Had a couple of runs they managed to pop to the outside, but the middle of the field was well and truly clogged. As I've said this before, Khalil Mack might be the best edge defender in the league. He did a stellar job just blowing up run plays, which is kind of his... For me, that's his trademark. As much as he makes game-changing plays in the past game, his ability to just explode into a blocker and sabotage a run play from that is one of my favourite things to watch in this league. He does a great job there. And the Titans' offensive line they just looked overpowered. Struggled to get too much push. Last year, that's what they did best, was just getting Murray 2-3 yards before he even had to get touched. That wasn't the case today. The Raiders stood them up really well. They attacked the line of scrimmage pretty effectively. I think the Raiders went into this with the right game plan. They were aggressive in their plan to stop the run. It paid off. My worry was they'd be soft up the middle and the linebacker position wouldn't play particularly well. Well, that ended up not being the case. They dedicated to stopping the run, and it worked. They dared Mariota and these new weapons to beat them, and I think we saw that Mariota and the new weapons, they've not really developed the chemistry yet, which again is something I did suggest is going to take some time naturally. Corey Davis has barely played. He made a few nice catches, including one really nice passing catch he made in the first quarter down the sideline over the top of a defender. That was a fantastic grab. Eric Decker had very little impact in this game. For some reason, they decided to throw him a couple of screens. I'm not sure that's the guy I'd target on a screen. Not known for his speed or quickness. So that they were strange. In the second half, I think because of some of the issues the Titans were having in moving the ball, we saw Mariota go to reliable Delaney Walker, who ended up having a pretty good game in the end. I don't think they targeted him early in the game enough. The first half, I think he saw maybe 1 or 2 targets. He ended up with a decent number of catches, made his usual plays over in the middle of the field, and he blocked very well in this game. He had a couple of really nice plays in pass protection, helping out Jack Conklin, who didn't look like he'd be able to handle Khalil Mack. Well, he couldn't handle Khalil Mack over the course of the game, but they did manage to minimise Mack's impact on the passing game. Mariota, I think, having rewatched the game again, at first I just thought he played okay. I don't think he had a particularly good game. I think it may be a little bit worse than okay. It wasn't a particularly solid performance. When you look at the state of this Raiders secondary, he wasn't able to take advantage of it. The Raiders did get some pressure over the course of the game, but I don't think they got enough for the passing game to have the production it did. Didn't do a good job throwing down the sidelines. Had a few miss throws. Could easily have been picked off in the red zone on an atrocious throw that he just tried to loft over a safety to Eric Decker. I think it was Cole Joseph who just managed to catch up on the play. Should never have thrown it, and could easily have been intercepted. That was a really poor decision. And he missed a few throws. There was one down the sideline in the third quarter, and he sidearms it, and it just ends up being totally uncatchable. It was a difficult throw, but I have to question the throw that he attempted. Had he just tried to loft it over the top, and had it been a well-thrown ball, I think it would have been an easy completion for the receiver. And instead, it was just rocketed over his head and thoroughly uncatchable. And there was a few of those passes over the course of the game. Other than a couple of bad decisions, his decision making was okay. It's just at the minute he doesn't quite look confident throwing the ball down the field, and that's something we certainly saw in his rookie season, and I think it manifested yesterday. Again, that may just be a result of chemistry. He did have some nice throws over the middle and short. He always looks good throwing there, and he did have a nice run on his touchdown. I'm not sure why he didn't run the ball a bit more. I think if there was one thing that could have opened up the run game for this team, considering the struggles they were having throwing the ball, it would have been Mariota trying to get him open on some bootlegs like they did for the touchdown. Wasn't really going to be able to escape up the middle. That was very much clogged up all day by the Raiders. As I say, their game plan worked a treat defensively. I don't think the Titans did a great job adjusting from a coaching standpoint to this, and really it just looked like they were happy to just try and plug away with what they were doing all game, even though it was clearly not working. DeMarco Murray was very quiet, didn't look particularly explosive in this game. If you've watched the roundtable, you'll know one of the guys we have on there, Arnie, is our resident Titans fan, and he was saying DeMarco Murray was not someone he felt enormously confident in this season. He thought Derrick Henry would see a lot of carries, and based on what we saw in this game, I think that's going to be the case. Henry just looked a bit more explosive coming off the ball. Murray didn't have a great performance. They didn't look to get him involved in the passing game enough. I thought they needed to try and stretch the field a bit more horizontally just to try and get things going. Everything was very centralised, and I think that played into the Raiders' hands with what they were doing. Didn't test the corners nearly enough, as I say. They should. Rashard Matthews started the game well and then kind of faded. I don't know why he wasn't tested. They didn't test more corners with him. You've then got the speedster whose name I always forget, Tywon Taylor. Don't know why there weren't a couple of shots intended for him. The pass rush wasn't overwhelming, even close to it, from the Raiders today. So I've got to question some of the game planning from the Titans. I don't feel there was any kind of adjustments made over the course of the game, or no significant adjustments, and I thought their game plan was very vanilla. Their offense was very vanilla, and I feel like the results were as well. So it feels like the Titans' offense just underperformed as a whole. The offensive line had an okay day in pass protection. The run blocking wasn't quite there. As I say, Mariota was mediocre. The receivers, I think they did okay with what opportunities they were given, but I would like to see the Titans make more of an effort to stretch the field, particularly against a team that's got such a questionable secondary heading into this game. So, and defensively, the Raiders, they'll feel good. They were stout against the run, which was a big concern for me heading into the year. I want to see this carry on. I'm not going to buy into the defensive unit just yet, especially against a team with so many new pieces on the outside. But definitely a promising start. It was certainly an improvement over last year. Eddie Van Dos in the DT certainly looked like a big improvement over what they had last year. So that was a real plus. I thought Kyle Joseph made some nice plays over the course of the game as well. If those corners can hold up, this looks like it could end up being a better unit than expected. Khalil Mack, statistically not a great game, but he did play well. Irvin, other than one really stupid penalty, I thought did a pretty good job as well. On the other side of the ball, the Raiders' offense was fine. They weren't at their absolute best. Amari Cooper had an up and down day. Made a great play for the first touchdown, breaking a tackle from Adoree Jackson, who they went after early and often in this game. And he managed to break that tackle and then sort of bowl through a bunch of guys into the end zone with some help from his guards. So that was a really impressive play. Then on the next drive, he had a pass broken up. It could have caught, but was pretty well defended. Had a drop in the end zone that was an easy catch. And he had a couple other drops over the course of the day. So when he had the ball in his hands, he looked explosive. He looked very dangerous after the catch. So that's got to be promising, but not his best performance by any means. I thought Michael Crabtree did a really good job coming down with some really tough contested catches. He doesn't get wide open, but he's those 50-50 balls. He's developed a real chemistry with Carr on those. We did see Carr releasing the ball early on a lot of throws. I was very impressed with his anticipation and his trust in his receivers, and they didn't let him down often. They did contest those passes pretty well. The Titans secondary as a whole held up better than I would have expected. Adoree Jackson, as I say, he was targeted heavily in this game, and he didn't embarrass himself. Was there on a lot of them. A lot of these passes you can see with a bit more experience, a bit more savvy. You could see him making some big plays. Didn't quite get his head around enough. Crabtree was just bullying whoever was on him over the course of the game. As I say, he played very well. It was good to see him using the tight end. Jared Cook looks like he's been a nice addition to the offense. He had a couple of significant catches. The pass protection, the tackle spot they did have some issues there. Smartly, they were keeping Lynch in to block at times in this game because Derek Morgan was producing some pretty consistent pressure off that right hand side, which is the one spot you do look at as an issue. Donald Penn didn't have a great game. I think as he rounds back into shape, they should be okay at that spot, but right tackle's got to be a concern. But they made the adjustments. There wasn't a huge amount of pressure over the course of the game. When there was, Carr adjusted to it pretty well. The interior did a great job. The Titans had absolutely nothing going up the middle. Jarrell Casey had an incredibly quiet game. He's the stud of that defensive line. He even had he got trucked by Marshawn Lynch at the end of the game as Lynch was looking to ice it. I mean that was absolutely brutal, and a great testament to Marshawn Lynch's power. Lynch looked like a fine addition. The combination of him behind this interior looks like it's going to be a very, very good one. I don't see game-breaking speed from him. He's clearly not got the legs he used to have, but he still ran with good vision, and the power is still absolutely there. was not being brought down on first contact, made a couple of really tough runs, broke a lot of tackles. There's a fourth down play where he shed in the first half, which was a big play in the game. Really could have changed the momentum had the Titans been able to get that stop. And it was a close game throughout, and he managed to just run through an arm tackle from Jonathan Cyprian, as you'd expect him to. Then a really good effort at the tackle from Avery Williamson, I believe it was, and Lynch just managed to sort of power over the top of him, force his way forward to get a yard. Tough on the linebacker. I feel he made a pretty good play. Damn tough guy to stop one-on-one from just getting that 1 yard after contact. So that was a really big moment in the game. I think it was as critical as anything in them getting this. His stat line won't wow you, but I think if you watch the game, you'll see he really did add something that this Raiders team didn't have last year. And in particular, when they were looking to run out the clock at the end of the game, he looked fresh. They did rotate the other guys in Washington and Roberts, and they looked okay. But yeah, at the end of the day, this was all about the ability of Lynch to just keep this offense from having to be in bad situations, which happened a lot last year. And they really were able to control the game on offense a lot of the time. Carr looked very comfortable, and they never really looked troubled. As I said, whilst the game was close, it never felt like the Titans were really out of it. It was a very mature performance from the Raiders, particularly on the offensive side, and they looked like they had another gear if they needed to go there. As has often been the case with Carr, didn't take too many chances, didn't go deep often in this game. There was a real lack of deep passing in the games I watched yesterday. I guess teams not wanting to take too many chances at this early stage of the season, maybe waiting for some chemistry to grow. But it was a good performance from Carr. Took what was there, as he's wont to do. And managed to keep this team out of bad spots and navigate winning what could have been a tough game for them. The Titans, would have certainly went into this game with high expectations. The game plan they had, I would have liked to have seen them be a bit more aggressive. Maybe see a couple of double moves on the rookie. They went after Adoree Jackson. That much was clear. I would have liked to have seen them try and hit something really big on him. So that would have been good. And that, they worked the sidelines really well. Didn't really use the middle of the field enough for me. I think that might have helped open up the pass a bit more. The run a bit more for Lynch. It did allow the Titans to crowd the line of scrimmage a little bit. And, whilst Lynch did do a good job with those interior runs, I think that could have certainly helped. But clearly their plan was to just pound the ball, keep themselves in manageable situations, and that was basically the case all day long. Amari Cooper was heavily featured. That didn't really work out for them, and so I don't think he had a particularly good day by any stretch. But Crabtree certainly performed. There just wasn't really much pressure on the Raiders at any point in this game. They got the lead early because of a very questionable decision to open the season with an onside kick. I get that it's great if it works out, but I just think starting the season on the back foot in what's likely to be a close game, I'm not too sure about it, especially when you're deferring as well. The Titans won the toss, so I've got to question Mike Mularkey on that decision. I mean, I'm a firm believer in questioning it even if he gets it right. I just think maybe if you really want to start the season with the ball and the other team's forcing have won the toss and decided to get the ball first, you try and maybe take that momentum from them. But yeah, it was a strange call. It put the Titans on the back foot from the beginning. And when you made hay last year as a power running, grindy type of team, I don't know if you want to give the other offense the opportunity to score 7 points, which they did. They went straight down the field and took a lead, forcing the Titans to play from behind for the entirety of the game, basically. So I think that was a really poor move, and I think it did kind of shape how the game felt for large chunks of it. However, I don't think there's too much to worry about for both of these teams. I think it was a clean, well-played game, and by the measure of a lot of the games I saw yesterday, these two offensive lines certainly look a lot better than some of the groups I had to see. Mariota didn't have a great day. I expect to see him get better as he develops some chemistry with Corey Davis and Eric Decker in particular, and just settle down, having come back off that injury. They'll have better days in the run game, you'd have to think. If not, then I'd be pretty concerned, because this offense does absolutely rely on that. And I'm not sure Mariota's at a point yet where he can carry a game by himself. I don't think he's shown that he can stretch the field consistently enough with this group of receivers. He does need the benefit of that run game, so they've got to be concerned, I think, with what they saw there. It could be that the Raiders are very good against the run this year, but I need to see a bit. We'll need to see a bit more from them before we can commit to that. On the defensive side of the ball, the Titans did okay. Front seven was all right. They weren't overwhelmed by the offensive line. They did get a little bit of pressure. Obviously, you'd like to see more than what they did get. But the secondary held up better than expected. They'll be tested more down the field, you'd have to think, in coming weeks. As I say, it felt like the Raiders were playing it very safe for a large chunk of the game. I think they just never felt threatened on the scoreboard, so they kept it fairly conservative. But they did come up with some key stops when needed, particularly in the red zone. So, or not in the red zone, but when the Raiders were knocking on the door of the red zone, forced a couple of long kicks. Good job by the Raiders' new kicker. Came in, made a couple of really tough field goals in that one, which ends up being a big contributor to that victory. And so the Raiders, I think the Titans can feel okay. They certainly didn't look like a bad team, and it looks like the Raiders, if based on last year, are a pretty decent team. They can feel okay with where they are at the moment. There is certainly improvement needed, but this is still a young team, and I think that will come with time, particularly in the secondary, where it's an entirely revamped group. You couldn't expect them to be necessarily great from day one. On the other side of things, the Raiders, I think they'll feel pretty good about this game. The offense looked fine. I do want to see a little bit more explosiveness from that pass game, particularly with Marshawn Lynch there. I want to see Carr being a bit more aggressive down the field. I'm not saying I want to turn this into a like fully aerial offense, just going deep all the time, but just I would like to see a few more shots taken, especially with a guy like Amari Cooper. I think can really punish some guys with double moves. It felt a little bit conservative for me, but the performance was sound for the most part. And I do think some of it came from, if they identified one concern with the Titans' defence, I think it was those two edge rushers in Arakpo and Morgan. I think they wanted to minimise their impact on the game, and they did a good job of that. And that was certainly effective. Who knows, if Cooper had been able to convert some of those opportunities he had, then things may have looked significantly more impressive from the Raiders' perspective. Got to be happy with what they saw from Marshawn Lynch in the run game. Got to be happy with what they saw from the offensive line. It looked really solid once again. And defensively, I'm sure they're happy. They overachieved on what many would have expected going in. I think the secondary wasn't really tested, and would like to see more pass rush, but that might just be a function of the Titans' offensive line being pretty good. So we'll see what's coming from them in following weeks. But it was a really good win. I think the main thing both teams take, it was a pretty clean, well-played game. There weren't too many big mistakes, and a bit of bad tackling at times from the Titans. But maybe that's just week one. But an okay performance all round. Raiders certainly deserved the win. As I say, this did just come down to them executing better on offense. They had the run game. The Titans really didn't, which that's the big concern for me. And it ended up being the difference. I think it was very much a fair result. Nothing too controversial in this one. And both teams will move on to next week, and big game for the Titans. And we'll see if the Raiders can continue to ascend in the AFC. So there you have it. That's my views on this one. I thought it was a good game. There were some stinkers yesterday, so I did enjoy this one. So, credit to both teams. They showed me enough to think that they could be contending come playoff time. And yeah, let us know. What do you guys think? Is there anything you saw in this game that really concerned you really want to discuss? Let us know, whether it's the comment section below, Cover Zero Facebook page, find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Always happy to talk football. If you enjoyed this, check out some of the other game reviews. I've already covered the Giants-Cowboys game, the Seahawks and the Packers game, as well as the Thursday night game. I'll be covering both Monday games tomorrow. Might try and get another video up today, see if I do get the time. That'll probably be the Eagles and the Redskins game. I don't know. I've got a lot of games to try and watch over the next couple of days, so going to try and get them all, try and get every single game in. We've got 2 episodes, hopefully. We'll have at least one, hopefully 2, of the Cover Zero Roundtable this week. One reviewing all 15 games from week 1, and then another episode previewing all of the games for next week. And we'll give some thoughts, in particular, leaning towards our own teams. But we will cover every single team. So check those out. They should be Wednesday and Thursday in all likelihood. As I say, the other reviews tomorrow. There's plenty of other stuff up on the channel. If you could like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff. It'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure as always. Have a great evening and go Bucks.